What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got John Gallagher of the almighty Raven. Thank you for your time today.
Good to be here, Alex. Good to be here. How are you doing?
Hanging in there the best I can during this uncertain time. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, the world is effed up with a capital F.
Wow, that was a very good saying, I gotta say. But you have the new album Metal City coming out very soon. Do you want to talk about how the making of this record was? Was there a certain goal that you guys were trying to achieve? Was there a preconceived idea? How did Metal City sort of come to be?
Yeah, it's been a long, tortuous birth, and a lot of things happened on the way. I mean, we did a good record with Extermination back in 2015 at this point. And, we'd raised the bar, and we knew when it came around to writing for the next one, we'd have to raise the bar again. And we really did. We had an awful lot of songs that were excellent, and looking forward to getting them together. And then our drummer, Joe, had a heart attack, and, had to quit playing drums. So he was out of the picture. We used a bunch of fill-in guys, and one of them was Mike Heller, who'd been playing with Fear Factory and Malignancy and a few other people, and we just clicked. It just worked out brilliant, and he brought a boatload of enthusiasm and fire to the songs we already had, and just took it all to a new level.
Yeah, Mike Heller's a great guy.
Oh, absolutely. And, younger guy, different influences, so, a lot of different stuff mixed into the pot, which really helped us, just take things further, so we got the fire and energy that we had on our early records, like, say, a Wiped Out or Rock Till You Drop, dragged into a modern 21st century production with great songs, great playing, and it's the best thing we've ever done. It really is.
That's awesome. Being that it was 5 years since the release of your last record, Extermination, did you think that this was almost kind of obviously you kind of just answered it, this is like a brand new start for Raven, right? It isn't just a continuation or picking up where you left off or something like that, right?
Well, it's been continuous. I mean, we never really stopped, so it's, it's new in the fact that this is the first studio album we make. I mean, we did a live record last year, which is the perfect bridge between Extermination and Metal City, and that was, again, it just came out of nowhere, that album, because some guy came up after the show and said, hey, we recorded your set on 24 tracks, there you go, enjoy. We didn't even know it was being recorded, so that really captured what we were all about. But we toured hard on Extermination all over the world, did an awful lot of stuff, and basically it had maybe a 5-6 weeks gap before we were due to go out and do more touring, and then Joe had the heart attack, and we got Mike in and did another 150, 175 dates. That was 2017.
Yeah.
For half of the year is a lot of dates.
I remember, because I follow you guys on Facebook and all your socials, and I remember seeing you guys announce one tour after another. I was like, man, I'm getting exhausted just looking at your Facebook page.
No, we're road dogs. We do like to get out there and do it. We really love playing live, and we're enjoying it more now than even when we were kids. We really do. So and Mike's of the same mindset. If there's a day off, he's upset for the rest of the week.
Definitely.
He just wants to keep playing.
Yeah.
So. And there's, new worlds to conquer, new bridges to cross. Even last year, we played China for the first time, Ecuador for the first time, Chile for the first time. And we just want to continue into that. Once this nonsense is out of the way, that's what we'll be doing.
Do you feel that Top of the Mountain, the first single that you released off of Metal City, could serve as a clear representation of what the whole album is going to sound like, or is that just the tip of the iceberg?
Both, actually. It's a great representation of what the album's about, where you can hear there's some classic Raven-style riffs and, idiosyncrasies, for want of a better word, in that. but it's also, you know, you can hear it's hyped up, and you can hear the sound quality, you can hear it's a wonderful 21st century production without it sounding fake and ridiculous. You know, it's organic, but it's big and powerful. And it is the tip of the iceberg, however, because when you delve into the other songs, it's like, oh wow, because there's harder and faster, and you know, but the songs they've got passion all the way through them, and great hooks, great melodies, and you know, the requisite amount of chaos just to make it happen. You know.
Have you always taken a new approach to every single album that you've made? Like, you know, going from Rock Until You Drop to, you know, All for One to Stay Hard, Glow, and every album in between. Is there like a formula that Raven tends to stick with, or do you guys still like try to experiment a little bit more with your style?
We always try to experiment, and generally they work. Occasionally they don't, but if you're a creative band, you don't want to say this is the formula and we're going to stick by it. You know, we are who we are. You cut us, we're going to bleed those style of riffs, those style of songs. But within that framework, we will push the envelope here, there, and everywhere, which you hear on the new record. A song like Human Race, you know, right off the bat, it's like, whoa, these guys have stepped it up. What's going on here? And then in the middle, it changes 180 degrees into something totally different. And that thing has always been in our mind to have a framework, to have a song where people are like, okay, I know what's happening, and then hit them with a left hook.
Okay, and
you know, as opposed to, you know, jazz rock where you're hitting people with left hooks every second and you got nothing to hold on to. It's great to have a framework, and then you can surprise people. You know?
Yeah, I feel like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because if you stay with a certain formula, people are going to say, oh, this album is repetitive, but if you experiment a lot, they're going to say you're all over the place. So I think you guys kind of have like the best of both worlds in the Raven catalog.
I think so. You know, there's albums which are like out of the norm. You know, the Pat Is Back is obviously very commercial. Architect of Fear is very heavy. Glow is probably the most experimental of all. But there's common ground. There's a thread that goes through all of them. You know.
Yeah. When it comes to experimenting, is there ever like a preconceived idea, or do you kind of like, does Raven go through a lot of what I like to call happy accidents, where like things are supposed to go one way but ends up completely a different way?
It's a lot more on the organic and just see what happens. I mean, I don't sit down and go, okay, today I'm going to write a rock and roll song that's anthemic and I'll have people punch in the air. You just sit and play. Your head's empty. You sit and play, and it's almost like you're a receiver. You pick stuff up. You've probably heard people talk about that before. And it's a very spooky voodoo type thing. But there'll be certain days where you'll play and you'll just play good stuff, and it's coming from somewhere, and you don't want to stop. And then you listen back afterwards and go, wow, what a load of rubbish. But other times you go, wow, this is really good. And sometimes you'll play songs from top to bottom, right off the top of your head.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of just letting your muse direct you, take you where it's going, and then type of like look back at it afterwards and try to make sense out of it all, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And like another thing is, are you ever worried like the stuff you may leave back or what you would consider rubbish could be a B-side one day and just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
Not so much. I mean, funnily enough, Top of the Mountain is a song that I've been working on literally for years, and it never had a good chorus. It always had it just didn't work. And I was, with the writing sessions for this stuff, I was just very clear in thought and was like, oh, this goes with this needs something like this. And just got all this stuff together, and that was one of the songs I put together, and I started playing it to Mark. He said, again? You're playing that again? He goes, listen. He said, I don't know. And then Mike heard it and went, you're nuts, it's great, it's brilliant. Let's play it. So we played it and we said, okay, let's do it. And we actually have been playing that song live for like the last almost 2 years. And it's been wonderful to get that fresh reaction from people, because it's been a long time since we've done that, to play music that no one's heard and go out and play it live. And it was wonderful getting that instant feedback of like, what's that song? That song's kick-ass, it's great.
Yeah. Like, could what people be hearing on Metal City, since, it was a 5-year gap between albums, is like what we're going to be hearing on Metal City? Is this like how the songs were originally written, or did these songs change a lot over a span of time?
No, this is how they were written. I had I demoed them a number of times when we were just kicking, between me and Mark, kicking stuff backwards and forwards. And then when Mike got his hands on them, he basically revved a lot of them up, and the arrangements changed slightly, because he would put cool stuff in. We're like, okay, we'll go with what he's playing. We'll match that, or leave a gap to let a drum fill, be showcased, stuff like that. But the structure was all there, and the lyrics were all there. We had literally 35 songs from start to finish, with lyrics and melodies and the whole 9 yards. So when we actually went in to record, Mike did his drums at his studio when he was in New York. We started recording the other stuff and had a disagreement with the guy we were working with and had to scrap everything. And by pure chance, I ended up with Michael Wagner, our old friend, and went to his studio in Nashville and did all the tracking of the guitars and the basses and the vocals with Michael. And that was maybe 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And then we did mixes, and we weren't happy with the mixes, so we started auditioning people for mixes, and we ended up with this guy, Zeus, who's done a lot of modern stuff, like Rob Zombie and what have you, and he just did an incredible job of keeping that old school feel, but putting the power and the gloss on it,
Definitely. Like, and what's unique is because being that, Raven has been around for so long, and, you have 14 albums done, it seems like you guys really know how to keep it fresh, not only for the listeners, but it seems like you guys have an art of, keeping the songwriting process exciting and, like, still, like, expecting the unexpected.
Yeah, because when we go in to record, it's at least 70-80% you know what you're going to do, but there's always that little area left for spontaneity. So when you're hearing something that sounds a little wild and fresh, that's because it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the certain parts. Like there's a crazy bass fill I put in on the end of Cybertron that was basically just doing hits with the drums. I thought, I'll ape what the guitar's doing, which is this ridiculous pull-off riff that I had to, get a brain transplant from Albert Einstein to figure it out in 5 minutes. Okay, I've got it, let's go for it, and got it one take, and boom, there we go. And those things is what elevates it and takes it to to a different place. And that's how we approach live too. We're trying to take that live experience into the studio, as opposed to a lot of bands. They slave forever to get it absolutely perfect, and then it's got to be perfect live.
Yeah.
No, we're taking the crazy out of the live and trying to put it into the studio.
I feel like when I listen to your music, it does it feels like I am watching you guys in a way, because there's so much energy channeled into the album that it almost hits you as if I was, if I had your amplifier just right in my face, Yeah,
that's how we record it. I do my bass part standing up. I don't want to sit down. I'm standing up. I'm pumping it out. I'm trying to make it work, And I just feel that, the band's 46 years old, which is a very hard, even for me, to comprehend. And most of the bands I know that have been 46-year-old or whatever, are, winding down. They've got the rocking chairs out on stage. Let's clean the guitars up a little bit, maybe let's do some country, and we're absolutely 180 degrees the opposite. And we just feel this record is like throwing the gauntlet down. It's like we've been around so long, and for us to come up with what I feel is the best record of our career is a big slap in the face to a lot of other bands who are milking it or going through the motions. It's like, we can do it, why can't you?
Yeah, I know bands that are half your age and they're already kind of like, going through the motions or, just like, like putting out an album for the sake of putting out an album. And really, you could tell when a band's heart isn't into it anymore. And what I think is amazing about Raven is that you always put your heart and your soul into your music and your lyrics, and you haven't let up in all these years. Like, props to you guys.
This is what we live for. This is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
And some people may be cynical about that, and we're not cynical at all. We have a laugh, we have a great time, but we're deadly serious about what we do, 110%.
Definitely. As a vocalist, do you need to hear music before you come up with lyrics, or is there ever a time where maybe you have lyrics or at least a story or something like in mind, and maybe that can help dictate the structure of the song?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes I'll hear a phrase or something will crop up that I've either saw on TV or heard someone say, and I'll just jot it down. So it's, sometimes I'll look at that, and often they just work out as titles. But I'll do the music, and then I'll usually put it put it on headphones or whatever, and walk around or have it on in the car, and la 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 la, just try and come up with a melody that goes against whatever the music is, and then the melody, you say, okay, we've got something there, and is there a title? Is there a title that fits with the chorus? We got something, the chorus is da 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 da. Okay, that's a good rhythm and pattern for a vocal. But what does the music suggest? And might have a couple of titles lying around and see if something might fit that way, shoehorn it in, or sometimes the music you just improvise something, and once you've got a hook into that, you can go, okay, so the title is Top of the Mountain. What's that about? And quite often it's just stream of consciousness. I'll just write something out because it's easier to edit something rather than try to write from start to finish and make it absolute, just put anything and then go back and try to decide what it's all about and try to make sense out of it and put it together. Mm-hmm. And it's very rare that I'll come up with a set of lyrics and go, okay, let's try and shoehorn this into a song. Very rare. It has happened, but not very often.
Nothing could be more heartbreaking too than having like the best lyrics ever, but then they're always like one syllable over or under like the arrangement of the song. I'd imagine that's had to happen once or twice in your career, right?
Well, that's usually the downfall of like writing out lyrics before there's music. It's just like, okay, there's a great line, but it doesn't work. And quite often it's more about the sound of the words than the actual meaning, because you can have something that's strictly logical and makes sense, but it sounds incredibly clunky, and it sounds like someone's reading off a teleprompter. You've heard bands where it's too verbal, there's too many words, and it's like no. It's got there's a difference between poetry and lyrics. That there really is,
Definitely. You mentioned the teleprompter thing. I even suggested to one band one time, because they're kind of like political in their lyrics, that they bring out like one of those desks like the president and talk like they're reading off of a teleprompter, like the whole stage while the band is playing.
Yeah, and they have the big screen at the back with a bouncing ball, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I've seen bands do stranger things.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they will.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is the most difficult question of the whole interview. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
How do you know when a song is done?
It's never really done. That is tough. It's a tough thing to figure out. You basically get it to a point where you're happy with it as far as arrangement when you're recording. You usually have a good idea. You're really losing the plot if you're like, I'm not sure. If you're not sure, it's definitely not ready, not right. And then the song takes on a life of its own once you start playing it live.
Yeah.
That's why the songs morph. I mean, the way we play I mean, we've been playing some songs now for, 40 odd years. They do change. They do change quite a lot, and sometimes you want to look back and go, well, hang on a minute, maybe you don't want to get too far away from losing the plot on this. But you listen back and go, no, it's still better now. It's good.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that like the songs do get a whole new lease of life when you do play them live. Like it's one thing to be satisfied with them in the studio, but you really aren't sure on how you aren't aware of the strength of those songs until you play them in front of an audience and see a reaction, right?
No, and usually, I mean, with the exception of the first album, which of course we've been playing live for at least about a year before we did it, every other album you're writing and then you record it, and then the joke has been for years, I'll learn the song once we've recorded it.
Mm-hmm. That's a very...
Because, I mean, I'll write a lot of stuff, and I'll demo a lot of stuff, so it's in my head. So I'm lucky in that sense. But if I wasn't doing that, it's very hard to learn 10 songs and go, okay, we're going in the studio and doing 10 songs to cram like that. So it's often better to do that, and you're not going to remember, and then cram per song, and you have an idea of what's going on. And again, that 30-40% of winging it will work in your favour.
Yeah.
And then if you come back at the end of the day, remember the first song we did today? How does it go? Say, I don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing that like, and if you don't mind me asking, actually, for like a lot of bands out there, that could be 10 years into their career and are already feeling burnt out, or I know bands that have been around for 5 years and they're feeling burnt out. Like, what is some like advice you can maybe offer to like bands to keep pushing and keep going, being that you guys have been around for 46 years?
Well, it's not for everyone, So a lot of people love music and they love playing, and maybe they love playing live, but to do it full on takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of obsessive attention to detail. It really does. I mean, we burned through marriages. I mean, we moved out of our home country. We basically, whenever there was an opportunity and there was danger on either side, we just said, well, got to do it.
Yep.
Got to move forward, and that's really what separates us from a lot of other bands. Because a lot of bands came out during the new wave, like British heavy metal, and they lasted 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I think people think that
we didn't, because there was opportunities and we took them. We weren't scared to take them.
Yeah, a lot of people think that the only bands of the British wave of heavy metal are like you guys and Judas Priest and Motorhead, and like they forget about like the hundreds of other bands that came out of that movement. Yeah,
I mean, there's lots of bands, and a lot of them got back together again, which is fine. That's cool. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like, what have you got to offer? Can you go out there and play live and entertain people, put a smile on their face, make great music? That's what it's all about.
Yep.
It's not like, oh, these guys are old, or these guys look like this, or who cares? It's the proof is in the pudding. Can you deliver? If you can deliver, bring it on. That's cool.
Definitely. And words of wisdom from Lemmy, who came from that same movement. If you think you're too old to rock and roll, you probably are.
Oh, that's so true. You know that. You probably met people who are 30, 35-year-old with a 60, 70-year-old outlook on life. Age is a number. It's not, but true age is a mindset. It's how you perceive your world and how you deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
you're going to moan on about everything and not do anything and just, bitch about it all, it's, you get what you get.
Exactly. You have to give as good as you get, and vice versa.
Yeah, you've got to, it's logarithmic. You've got to put out 10 times the effort to move one step forward.
Definitely.
Every time.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, I mean, a band like us, I mean, somebody pointed that out. I've been playing bass for like 47 years. I'm still learning. I'm still getting better.
Yeah.
Because I measure myself against myself. And if I'm doing better today than I did yesterday, I'm moving in the right direction.
Definitely.
And to not never forget that. And, I could say, oh, I'm great. Well, maybe I'm better than some people, but there's a lot of people better than me. But I'm more interested in bettering myself against what I did yesterday. And it seems a healthy attitude,
Yeah, you never stop learning. And no matter what you think, like when you think you're too old for this, you will never stop learning. That is one thing that will happen until the day you die.
Damn straight. There's no end to this.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate this. Just obviously thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named. Obviously touring isn't happening at the moment, but I'd imagine when all this is over, we'll be seeing Raven on the road quite a lot, right? Being the ultimate road dogs that you guys are.
Absolutely. We have a European tour booked for February, and all things being equal, we'll be doing that and then stretching that out to everywhere else as soon as we can.
Well, hopefully we get to see you in the States sooner than later.
Yes, sir. That's the plan.
Thank you. But again, John, thanks again for being here. Everybody, we are here with John Gallagher of the almighty Raven, Metal City, coming out via SPV Steamhammer September 18th. Pick it up then when supplies last forever. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.